Let's give it.
I'm sorry, Dr. Lee, to interrupt you for a second time.
I didn't want her to do it 3 times. So give us a minute.
I can hear her.
You're just messing with her, Dal. I know, you're just messing with her, aren't you?
Eugene, are you on there, Eugene? I thought I heard Eugene's voice.
Yeah, you should have waited till she was halfway through it.
I'm not that mean, Mrs. Anderson.
How come we can hear each other, but other people can't hear us? That doesn't make sense to me.
So we're broadcasting the Zoom. So what we're on, and then he's taking that signal and sending it out.
Oh.
Okay, Kelly, give us like 5 more minutes. I'm sorry. The link is changing on the website, so people can access it through the website. So my apologies again. Technology is awesome. But Delray, thank you for interrupting Dr. Lee, because I was thinking we're gonna make it a 3rd time. Okay, everyone. I think we're back. I will, Kelly, just so you are all aware, we updated on the website. Unfortunately, the date is the wrong for the stream, but it's the right feed. So if people just click on that, they'll be able to access it, no problem. They have to refresh though.
So, I'm sorry. So how are we getting that word out to people? Is it on the website? Or, I mean, they can't hear us.
It's on the website.
We can't tell them.
It's on the website. So as soon as they just have to hit the stream, they just hit refresh and then it will come back up. We're emailing the people that have emailed us.
Okay.
And so that stream will be back there.
As long as we're streaming here too, we're recording.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So we're on right now, Kelly, just so you're aware.
Should we wait a few more minutes to let people get back on?
I would. Can't hurt.
And for those of you who may be jumping back onto the call, we apologize for the technical difficulties. This was something completely out of our control. There was an accident in the area where the meeting is being live streamed. So they lost power and therefore lost the live stream. The Zoom part of it, the Zoom portion is working, but the live stream, which is the Zoom call, is being live streamed out through our website, and that part of it got dropped off because of transformer had blown out. So we apologize. We're going to pause and just wait and make sure that people have an opportunity to get back on. and go ahead and just sit tight, and we will get back going in a few minutes.
The text messages I've gotten say there is not a link online anymore.
If you refresh the page, Vanessa, I'm texting people back too. If they refresh the page on the website,
Yeah.
Unfortunately it says the wrong date, but if you click the stream, it takes it to the YouTube channel and then it fires up.
Okay.
I just got a few texts working now. Okay, so people are saying it's back up.
And again, just for those of you who might be just now jumping back onto the Zoom, not the Zoom call, but the live stream, just so you know, we lost power where the meeting was being live streamed due to a vehicle accident. So one of the transformers was blown, something completely out of our control, but we're pausing everything just so everyone can have an opportunity to get back online. So you don't miss any of this riveting conversation. We don't want you to, miss out. So we are pausing for just a few moments, and just go ahead and sit tight. We will resume back in a few moments.
And Kelly, it looks like we're back live. People are saying they're good to go. So I've got
Wonderful.
multiple texts from.
Okay, so Del Rey and Dr. Lee, great, wonderful. You guys are back. And sadly, we're going to ask Dr. Lee to, for the third time, start her board report again. So if you could please provide us that wonderful report again so that everyone hears it all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to begin by saying to all who are celebrating a very happy Lunar New Year. This is the year of the ox, and may we renew our commitments to the hard work it will take and the new ways we can all work together to foster greater racial equity in our community. I really believe that every action counts. I want to open my report by stating that I've been delighted to learn in these past months how we as a board are committed to continuous improvement in all sectors of our learning community, from the boardroom to the school cafeterias. And as an individual board member, I hope to model the professional development and growth that we want to see reflected in the practices of our certificated and classified staff. As such, I want to thank President Kelly and Superintendent Lair for the opportunity to attend the California School Board Association's new board member workshop, which was held on February 2nd through 3rd. It was amazing to learn more about the work that lies ahead, and I look forward to our governing board also engaging in workshops that will help us to strengthen our governance team as we move into our new roles and responsibilities in the coming months. Teaching and learning through a pandemic is no easy task, and now it's so very important to keep an eye on our individual and collective humanity. I want to commend our learning community for the work they are doing to keep our students connected as we navigate this crisis together. To all of the teachers and staff that shared with me information about what you are doing to recognize the contributions of Black people to our nation's history, starting in January, when we typically commemorate the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, and moving on into Black History Month, which is this month, the month of February. From Dudley, I want to thank Mrs. Campos and the first grade team and Mrs. Dean and the second grade team. From North Country, I want to thank Mrs. Richwine and the third grade team. And from Spinelli, I want to thank Mrs. Biddle and the first grade team. Thank you for sharing your student activities and learning with me. I appreciate the confirmation that it's never too early or too late to learn about the sacrifices and contributions that African Americans have made to make this nation great. Middle and high schools, I know you're out there I welcome you to hit me up and let me know what's up out there as we all celebrate Black history in our district. This month, I've learned some of the many ways that teaching and learning during this global pandemic has been taking place in our district through modalities that are safe and responsible for students, teachers, and staff. Thank you for tapping into this noble idea that physical distancing does not equal or have to equal social distancing. Instead, physical distancing just requires us to become more creative about the ways we connect with the people that we care about. Innovation and triumphing over adversity with excellence is what we do as Americans. Thank you for keeping our students connected to the social and emotional supports that are available and that have actually expanded significantly in our district during this time, thanks to the work of all the members of our learning community. Finally, for those who would like to connect with me, please plan to attend my drop-in office hours on first Mondays, 4 to 5 p.m. on Zoom, or to catch up or just drop in and share things with me. I'm also looking forward to our listening and learning session on February 23rd from 4:30 to 6 p.m., where I look forward to learning more about your perspectives around the state of social, emotional, and culturally competent teaching in our district. All parents, guardians, caretakers, teachers, staff, and administrators are most welcome to attend. You can find the details for my office hours and the link to register for the February 23rd listening and learning session on our board member website. So wrapping up for the third time, stay safe, stay connected, and be well. And that concludes my February 2021 report, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. So moving on to Delray Pope. Mrs. Pope. Oops.
I do not have a board report today, Ms. Kelly. Thank you.
No way. That's so unusual. Okay, great. Mr. Bruno.
I also don't have a board report, and honestly, that would be a tough act to follow. So,
All right, Mr. Lear.
And I just briefly, I just want to echo, and I guess I do have to follow that, which is unfortunate, but I do want to echo the thank you to staff and the community. These have been difficult and trying times on all of us, and I appreciate the effort and conversation we've had to try to do what's best for our students and staff and communities as we move forward. So thank you all for that. Another piece just to inform the board is this week, as you know, Tuesday, educators, people working in education are available now to receive the vaccine. For those in our educational community here in Center Unified, we are sending stuff out as soon as we get it. There's about 25,000 other educators in our community that are also fighting for those slots with limited availability. Hopeful that we did get, and I'll give kudos to a teacher at Center High School who shared a link with me where she was able to get a vaccination. We were able to get that out rapidly to people, and I heard people have sent messages back already saying they've got an appointment scheduled. So to me, that's a real positive to help us continue to get back to a safe environment. And with that, I just want to thank everyone, and that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lear. So I have a very short report. I just want to echo Dr. Lee's comments about Happy New Year for the Lunar New Year. That's exciting. And Happy Valentine's, even though it's past. And welcome to our new employees, Lucia Lonero, and Jessica Samuelewski, and Janelle Newman, and Janelle's a resignation. New employees. Yep. We have a retirement, Kathy Magnani. Congratulations, Kathy. Good luck in your retirement. And then we have two promotions, Norris Drummond and Roseanne Maffei Fields. So congratulations to all of you. Welcome to the new employees. I will have more extensive comments when we get to the agenda item on reopening. So I will defer the rest of my report to that period of time. So thank you, everybody. All right, back to the agenda. All right, the next item is item number 14, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll motion.
Do we have a second to approve the consent agenda?
I'll
Second.
second. Oh, go ahead.
Do we need individual votes or can we do general consent?
I would do roll call since we're over Zoom. I just think it's more,
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The consent agenda is passed. All right, moving along, business items. We have 3 business items tonight. The first one is the CSBA Delegate Assembly Election, Subregion 6B. Do we have a motion? Let me just make a note here. The board as a whole may vote for up to 5 candidates. There are only 3 candidates on the slate, and the board may cast no more than 1 vote for any one candidate. So if we wish to vote for one or all of those candidates for the Delegate Assembly, CSBA, then please make a motion.
I make a motion that we cast 1 vote for Kelly Kelly.
Do we have a second? No second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Oh, first of all, any discussion?
Just we've had other board members that run for this position, and it is an expense to the district because we have to pay for your trips back and forth to the national meetings, but in the long run, it's worth it. I think it brings some experience and knowledge back to the district of what's happening with CSBA. That person didn't really enjoy it that much, but I think you're probably in a place where you would. So I'm
just looking to glean as much information as I can and be able to bring that back to us. So, and
yeah.
I mean, Scott and Del Rey, you guys both know this. I try to keep my costs to a minimum. Poor Carol, she's like, but I want to put you at the Hyatt. I'm like, no, put me at the, YMCA or something. I don't care. Just as long as I can walk to the conference, please, So I really do try hard to keep whatever travel costs to a minimal.
You'll be going to those meetings alone and,
I'm
without other
kidding
board
about the
members to protect you.
YMCA.
So you need to go to a safe place.
Yes,
I agree with her there.
in the
Some of
value, the
places we
value,
booked were
the
not
value,
nice.
the value spent is brought back in full. The experience that you'll bring back, Miss Kelly, will be fantastic. So to me, it is money well spent. Just one point of order. There are 4 people that are running for the 5 spots. It might make your motion more efficient. Is there any other people on that slate that this board would like to vote for? When we turn it in, we cast the votes for the 4 or whatever you select instead of doing 4 different motions. If you only want to vote for Kelly off that slate because that's the only one then that's fine. But just wanted to clarify, if you want to mark more than one individual as a vote, please.
That makes it more powerful if you do it that way.
You mean just voting for one or voting for all of them?
Voting for one.
Okay. Just
Thanks.
one.
That's my opinion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Did we get a second on that? Yes, Mr. Bruno seconded, and Mrs. Anderson, you voted aye. Dr.
Aye.
Lee
Aye.
and Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
and the chair will abstain from voting for herself. Yeah, I saw that on in the agenda, and I saw that there were 5 vacancies and 3 candidates. And I was like, well, maybe there's 4. I only saw 3, but I was like, oh, honey, I guess I'm going to be a delegate. So there we go. Little did I know that no one wanted the job. All right, item number B, business item number B, COVID-19 status in our region and transitioning to Plan 2. So this is an action item if we choose to make a motion. So the board will discuss the current status of COVID-19 in our region and its potential impact on our transition to our Plan 2 hybrid model. And I would like to open this up. Do we have a motion to bring this to the floor? So moved. Mr. Bruno, thank you. And a second? I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
Oh, okay, Dr. Lee seconded. All right, so I want to start this out by just saying, first of all, thank you so much to the parents who have written to us about reopening. I know there's a lot of information. I mean, there's just so much going on. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of confusion because there's guidance coming from, 12 different locations. We have to follow it all. We have to read it all. We have to understand it all. It's not easy. So kudos to our superintendent, Lear, and all of his staff for really dissecting all of this information. I got a little bit of a taste of it this weekend, and I swear my eyes were cross-eyed after about 4, 5, 6 hours of reading. I couldn't take any more, but there's a lot of guidance out there. And thus far, we've followed all of it. Not only have we followed all of it, but we have done so much work in preparing to reopen between infrastructure, HVAC, new schedules, training for distance learning, setting it up so that we can do hand washing, building that into the schedule, adding nursing staff, setting new cleaning protocols, ordering PPE, training people on the proper use of PPE, prioritizing schools that have serve populations at risk for learning loss, prioritizing in-person instruction for students with disabilities, creating cohorts and pods, screening testing for our staff. I mean, right now we are on a prevention screening every 2 months. And I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, all the things that we have done. And we have been very diligent about getting everything done in advance so that we are ready to open when we can safely open. Now, there's some confusion because we did approve January 6th as the reopening date. However, that was contingent upon us remaining in the red tier. So because we very shortly after that vote went straight into the purple tier and then actually went further into the stay-at-home order, we have not had the opportunity to reopen until at all. So, I mean, it's just not been an option for us to reopen legally or feasibly. So now we are at this level of less than 25 cases per 100,000. Our case rate is under 25 per 100,000. So that puts us at a new level where we are able to apply for a waiver. The concern right now with the waivers, and Mr. Lear, I'm going to expect you to back me up and correct me if I misstate anything, but the concern with the waivers right now is that there's new guidance from CDPH that came out on January 14th. That guidance recommends a testing cadence of at once per week for all staff, and offering it to all students once per week. So although it is voluntary for students to take it, I'm sure that some will, and with all of the staff and however many students that will choose to be tested, the cost of that is enormous. Now, the funding that is supposed to go with that has not been approved. It's not been, and the funding that they put in place that's under review for approval is insufficient to support $150 per test once per week for every staff and every student who wishes to be tested. So without that requirement, of course, we would be able to reopen, but we have verified. Mr. Lear directly spoke with the health officer at Sacramento County and confirmed that we are required to do that testing. So I don't know if other districts have some magical stash of cash. I don't know, but if they're doing the testing, it is cost prohibitive. We do expect that there will be new guidance coming out from CDC and from CDPH very soon, or not CDPH, but from the state. And we're hoping that there's new funding attached with that. School Board Association has sent a letter in collaboration with several other educational organizations. They've sent a letter to the legislature asking for some specific things that we would need that are not included in the guidance that is being discussed right now. Some of those things include things like consultation with our labor groups. Sorry, I just drew a blank. And funding, of course, to support tracing and testing, and other things that we would need in order to be able to open. Now, that is all assuming that we are in the purple tier, which we are. We're currently in the purple tier. We anticipate being in the purple tier for probably a little bit longer. But once we reach the red tier, then we will be able to look at that 2 weeks in. The same rules that applied back in July and when we voted on this back in the fall will apply, unless they come out with new guidance, which they have not yet, that would change that. So if we reach the red tier, which would require the work of the entire community, then we would, after 2 weeks, be able to reopen. And so we're ready for that. We've done all of the preparation, we've done all of the reports and all of the guidelines and all of the infrastructure. We've done everything that we need to do. We're just waiting until we have that opportunity to actually be able to open legally and feasibly. So believe me, we believe the same that everyone out there does, that it can't come soon enough for us to safely reopen. We all want our kids back in school. It is not that we're trying to prevent you from bringing your kids to school. We're just trying to make sure that everyone stays safe. So there's great news that we're now going to be able to get vaccines. So that's going to bring the numbers for the community down, which is going to work us towards that red tier. And once we reach the red tier, we are ready to we're ready to go. So we are, I can't speak for the rest of the board on how they would vote when it comes time for the reopening, but we're ready. The district is ready. So I just wanted to make sure that there was some clarity around what we've done and why we've done it and where we're at as far as being prepared to reopen. And with that said, does anyone else have any comments or discussion?
Maybe Mr. Lair could go over the home part as well as the school part, how they've worked that out for those who don't want to come to school.
Thank you.
So there, as we move into Plan 2, which is in our playbook, does provide an option. Families would have the option to remain in distance learning, while those that chose to come back could come into that hybrid in that Plan 2 model. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other piece is we've continued to see it trending. We've updated all of our documents. Also included in the board packet is our CSP, which is another new requirement. Schools that had opened previously fall under the old rules. We haven't opened, so we're under new rules. We do anticipate that I think there's going to be some changing. CDC came out with some new guidance Friday evening, afternoon. But I think that the thing to echo what you said, Trustee Kelly, is we are ready to go. I think what we have is we have agreements with our bargaining units. Realistically, we're there with our CSPs and our checklist. It's a required document to post. We need to talk with our labor groups. We need to talk with our parent or community groups. Those are all scheduled, that we would be able to share those documents, which is a condition of those. So we are good to go at that point. So I don't know, Trustee Anderson, if there's anything else that you were asking or if that covered it.
Thank you.
Anyone else have comments?
I do. I've received a lot of feedback from the community on this issue. So I just kind of want to share with the board and with the public the kinds of things that I've been hearing. I've heard from some who support delaying reopening, some parents who feel it's still not safe. I heard from teachers questioning how effective teachers will be trying to do both in-person and distance learning at the same time, and questioning how much socialization the students can actually have while adhering to the guidelines. I've heard concerns from teachers about sub availability, about whether or not it's fair to reopen some grades and not others, being that we are a unified district. Saying that it feels like this is rushed in other districts that are opening and closing and having to quarantine and everything. And also pointing out that we are having our board meeting on Zoom and we're discussing reopening schools. I've also heard from teachers who have said that students need to experience a classroom, especially like kindergarten students who may never have actually set foot in the classroom yet, may not have experience with a book yet. I've heard a lot from teachers, and I'm sorry, from parents saying that they're seeing a lack of engagement from their children. They're kind of just tuning out. The distance learning just is not working. That they're concerned about the lack of socialization, that they're seeing mental health issues, that this situation has been difficult for teachers, students, and parents alike. I'm getting comments about how children are suffering and how their academic performance is dropping. And very powerfully, we even had a student contact us talking about how this situation is affecting students socially, emotionally, mentally, and physically. The vast majority of what I'm hearing from community members is that they want us to open as soon as possible. I'm not sure all of them understand that while we are in the purple tier, we do not have a legal path for reopening grades 7 through 12. There's just no legal option available to us for that. Can we hear what logistical issues there would be if we wanted to reopen grades K-6 while still in the purple tier?
Yeah, so and Mr. Jordan, you can jump in on this as well, but logistically, the collective bargaining agreements we have would need to be reopened. Currently, they have agreement for 2 weeks in red. The other would be the testing cadence. We did, and actually Miss Mason and myself were on with the doctor who would approve it, and there was the testing cadence requirement, which I'm reading documents. We're still trying to get that clear, but since she actually was the one who would sign off, that's a big logistical thing for us to try and test even half of our district. Financially, forget the financial piece for a minute, just the logistics of doing it. There is also, other than those two big ones, Mr. Jordan, are there other ones that you could see right now that we have faced with a K-6 option?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The testing cadence is the biggest speed bump obstacle for sure. And I'm not even talking about the money part, but the logistics of getting it done on a weekly and bi-weekly basis. We've met, Mr. Lair and I have both met with numerous testing companies who are selling the test, the county, trying to figure all these issues out logistically.
And from what I understand, you said that the districts that had previously opened aren't subject to that same requirement?
So some districts opened when they were in the red tier, and it's my understanding that they're following the guidance at that time. We had some that opened under the waiver in the past, and they were following that waiver information as well. So everything I've read, it does fall into, since they opened under those conditions, and they're allowed to remain open under those conditions. There was some new things they had to publish, CSPs and the prevention plans and things like that.
But they don't have to do the same testing cadence that we would have to do.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and just to note that when the vote came up to whether or not to reopen, we were looking at coming up to Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, New Year's. And so that's why we selected the January 6th date, so that there wouldn't be that break in back and forth and back and forth. And that's turned out to, prevent us from being able to reopen because we immediately fell into the purple tier. And honestly, with the fact that we are in the purple tier means that, the community is not a safe environment for reopening schools. The CDC in their recent guidance that came out just last week, I believe, made several references to the need to have community risk mitigation. So not just the school district, but the community needs to be following all of the risk protocols. So here, let me read a couple of their references. School administrators working with local public health officials should assess the level of risk in the community, since the risk of introduction of a case in the school setting is dependent on the level of community transmission. Alternately, if community transmission is high, but school and community mitigation strategies are implemented and strictly followed as recommended, then the risk of transmission in a school will decrease. So it's not just the school following mitigation strategies, but the school and the community. We have no control of the community. And so at this point, we're ready, but the community is not. The community needs to be in the red tier before we can open. So.
Well, and also when we were talking about this with the kids, if the kids came to school with a runny nose, we would have to send them home and they would have to be tested before they could come back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at a situation where if a teacher went out, the whole class would have to be quarantined because there weren't enough substitutes to come in and take over. And some classes were in other districts that did go back, they were sent out on quarantine immediately. They didn't have teachers out there to take over. So I think
that's a statewide issue.
But we are ready to go. Pardon?
Yeah, the substitute situation is a statewide issue. There are not enough substitutes to backfill the classes. If anyone, if one student or one person in a cohort has symptoms, the entire class, including the teacher, has to be quarantined, and then we need a substitute if that person is sick. So they would need a substitute that could distance teach, I'm assuming. I don't know how it works. I honestly don't, but I know that anytime, a teacher is out, we have to have a substitute. So.
Well, and just to clarify, there would be contact tracing that would be done depending on the cohort. So it could be the whole class. It could be part of the class. It depends based on the contact tracing, where we do have through personnel, they were trained through Johns Hopkins for contact tracing. So I don't want the wrong thing. There also could be a time where a teacher who we have had who has been feeling not well, who can teach distance learning. So it's a really unique situation. One of the things that I think would be very beneficial for staff and the community is an outline of the plan. I know it's really difficult in our environment to pick a date and say, this is the date we're going to come back. But I think if staff can walk away knowing and communicating with our families, if we're going to go red tier, 2 weeks in red tier, then we can start sharing that with our families. Obviously, like we did back in January, things radically changed, or back in November, radically changed. I think that's an important thing, because I think, unfortunately, it seems like as if we're not prepared. Now, if the board is not willing to come back at that red tier at the 2 week mark, it would be nice to know what that direction is so we can communicate that with our community and our staff, because they need to start preparing physically. Sometimes some teachers have been working from home, and they're going to need to come back and work and get their rooms geared back up. So there's just a lot of process that we can't control yet until we have at least a timeline.
Some sort of guidance.
Yeah.
Or as soon as possible.
Yeah. Does anyone else on the board have any comments about reopening? Dell, Dr. Lee? Carol, do we have any public comments? Can we go ahead and hear those at this time?
Yes, I do have some public comments to read.
Thank you.
Okay, so this one is from a Center Cougar parent. It says, esteemed board members, I am the parent of 2 Center High School students. I write this as a mother, community member, social worker, veteran, and taxpayer, but I also write this as a voice for the many other parents and students in our community. I am writing to advocate for schools to open as soon as humanly possible. As a mental health professional, I have had my finger on the pulse of our community for the last year, and the situation is dire. The acuity of our kids' mental health is worsening due to growing impacts of trauma from the last year. We also know that school is essential and remote school leads to learning loss, which is magnified for low-income students, students of color, and those with learning differences. To be clear, in our family, we value educators and education. Passionate, driven, empathic teachers are the real rock stars and game changers. They change lives. Teachers with a true calling are similar to a doctor or nurse in the ER, a crisis worker, soldier, farmer, or any of our essential workers, always subject to inherent risks while performing a great duty in the noble profession they have chosen. Education symbolizes knowledge, empowerment, and economic justice. I am truly an ally. We know school is safe. The CDC continues to make this clear. We know from the many open schools right here in neighboring communities and across the nation that have been open for months. School is not a driver of community spread, and staff and students are not at higher risk of being infected at school with safety precautions in place, meaning masks and reasonable distancing at least 3 feet or more, and not major HVAC and building improvements. These measures that have already been in place work. In speaking with other districts and principals, they are not having outbreaks, therefore minimizing need for testing, which is also an enormous cost and logistical effort only to detect extremely low positivity rates, lower than in the community. In instances where they may close a certain classroom temporarily, they report, "We already know how to do distance learning, and it's temporary and okay." Parents and students are tremendously upset and refuse to let this continue. We must get good teachers back in the classroom with students. The alternative is many bright young students, scholars, athletes, leaders, and innovators are being denied their right to education equality and might not make it. Others have and will transfer out to get opportunities available to them in other districts. This exodus is already evident. Private and charter schools open for the school year are seeing enrollment rise, and the disparity is repugnant. Center is a great school in a district with a long history, a wonderful mix of diversity, grit, intelligence, and character. With that said, I would like to close with some questions and solutions, but not without saying thank you to all of you who are working so hard for the students. We are depending on you, and also acknowledge we are awaiting top-down guidance. Much of what you have been doing this year is behind the scenes for a lot of us, but it has been critical for our kids. This certainly deserves recognition. This board and administrators have been responsive, welcoming, and receptive since I initially reached out. I feel hopeful we share a common mission to reopen as soon as possible to mitigate further harmful impacts to student welfare and equal access to education. Solutions/questions. What are the barriers to reopening for those students who choose that option? And are they mandates, implied, recommended? Could the district delay implementation on some aspects? What are some possible strategies to overcome them? Are they truly insurmountable? If things change and new guidance is published, are you willing to open? Is there an option for those students not thriving to come on campus with aides or staff to support while they distance learn with their teacher? Does center know which students are thriving, maintaining, or suffering? Can sports and clubs be promoted more in order to increase awareness and attendance since they are allowed? These could be helpful protective factors for students. And signed respectfully, Center Cougar parent. The next one I have is from Nicole. She says, "You need to open schools. This year is ruining kids' lives." The next one is from Misty Walker. "What is the status of returning to in-person learning? Are you concerned about our kids getting behind compared to other students who are in person in nearby districts?" And from Kenya, it says, Stop the political nonsense. Open these schools. Put our kids first. From Misty Walker, will the kids be going to school through summer? Will there be any extra schooling offered for the kids who are behind due to the distance learning shortcomings? From Joan Lofton, I'm making a strong request to work as hard as possible to open the Center High School soon. My 2 students need to go back to school this year. She must graduate and enjoy the remainder of her senior year. From Monica, please allow us the choice to return our children to in-person learning. It is now allowed in Sacramento County. This is occurring in Natomas starting next week. The students just across the street from us in other Antelope schools are already in modified day, and this is greatly impacting our children when they see their friends in school. Just today, Antelope High had a spirit day, and our kids were crushed that they did not get to participate. Our kids come out of their room frustrated that they have been sitting at a computer for 3 hours and now have 3 more hours of asynchronous work. This is not working anymore. The fact that high schoolers can work and their work permits have gotten extended hours, yet they can't sit in a classroom is completely backwards. Our high schoolers have gone from setting their sights on Ivy League schools to not being sure if they even want to go to college now. Please give us the choice and allow those who want to remain at home that option as well. Thank you. From Chandra, are there any exceptions for getting kids with special needs back on campus? From Amber Seals, how will the $5 million the district has not yet received be used? From Catherine Wilson Davis, and I believe this, some of these that I'm now reading, they didn't know that we had gone back live, and I did email them. I just watched the board meeting and I feel there wasn't a direct answer given for the opening up of the schools. We need dates. You are holding family hostage and making it difficult for us to earn a living and provide in these desperate times. I moved next door to North Country Elementary so my grandson could be close to his school. We are grandparents raising our grandson and we need answers. From Michael Parlati, open the schools. You have slacked off enough. You're doing an absolute disservice to this community. How dare you take our taxpayers' money for doing basically nothing? You guys are robbing this community. Pathetic human beings you all are. Shame on you for making excuses, stealing, and being able to sleep at night. Esteban Rodriguez says, what's best for our kids is to open the schools. Why are we waiting to open the schools? Kids that live on the other side of Antelope are going to school and just started going 4 hours yesterday. Would a protest from the parents help open the schools sooner? From Amber Seals, is testing the only obstacle to applying for the waiver and reopening in the purple tier? From Alicia Rodriguez, kids need to go back to school. It is not healthy for their mental health to be home for almost a year. 95% of my kids' friends have been in school since October here in Antelope. They live less than a half mile away and started going 4 hours yesterday. My kids are questioning why they can't go back yet. Can you explain why these schools are making it happen and Center has not? What's the difference besides being in a different county, less than half a mile away? From Misty Walker, where would funding need to come from to support the weekly testing? Federal level, state level? From Alicia, the state did say that the majority of the state should be in a red tier by next week. Does that help? From Daniel Turk, please point out exactly in the CDPH report where it states teachers must be tested. There is no magic pot of money other districts have. My understanding from reading that report is that testing may be used along with other abatement and prevention options as part of a reopening plan, but I can't find it as a requirement anywhere. This one is from Danae Polk. Hi, my name is Danae Polk. I attend Center High. I don't think it's fair that we are not in school. I'm struggling big time. It's not about seeing friends. It's about me. I mean us, getting a better education. Everyone is suffering. I feel if Dry Creek can open, why can't us? Please, board members, allow us to go back to school. And it looks like I have a couple more that have come in. This one is from Esteban Rodriguez. Half of our Antelope community is going to school already. So how is our community not safe or ready? And from Armani Moses. Thank you to all district members, but I'm a student at Wilson C. Riles. We need to go to school. I'm not learning anything. I'm less interested. Please allow Center USD to open back up. And from Monica, if teachers are vaccinated, they don't need to test every week. And that is all I have at this time.
Mr. Lair, what is the program with the high school or junior high and high school and them going back?
The junior high and high school going back, that there is no, for 7-12, the guidance does not allow in purple tier for them to go back. There are cohorts that we're working. There are certain groups of populations that are allowed to come in as cohorts: special ed, homeless, foster youth, and EL. The state has provided provisions for small cohorts of that to return. We do have some of those in the works or happening. We're looking at ramping some of those up. We have done it with volunteers, teachers and stuff, and staff members, and we're looking at increasing that. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean, the cohort.
Do they prohibit the high schoolers from coming back?
In the purple tier, yes. The guidance says that they can, 7-12 cannot come back as a collective group.
What about in the red tier?
Red tier, K-12, TK-12 can return with the.
Oh, 2K-12, okay. So we're talking 2 weeks after we're allowed in the red tier, or we go red.
Correct. Correct. And actually the guidance has changed even on that. Our collective bargaining agreement says 2 weeks, but now the state has said 5 days after you enter red would be allowable.
So you're actually looking for guidance on how to proceed?
Yes, what we would appreciate is I know we can't, because we can't tell the metrics. I know right now the state level went for 18.7. It seems like it's dropping about 5 to 6 case rate per week. It seems it was dropping a lot faster earlier. I don't know if the board could anticipate a date, because I think that would be pretty hard. But if we can get direction that we can communicate with our families to say, when we're in there 2 weeks in red, we open, that we're good to go. We can communicate that. We can communicate along the progress the state or our county is making towards that. So at least people have an idea of where we're heading versus not knowing. And I know that has caused some confusion and concern in families because they don't know.
I agree.
And staff, not just families too, but everyone.
And maybe along with that same communication, you list out everything we have done to protect their child while in school.
Yeah, and we will continue to communicate. We have our playbook, and then each school site has their own, and I'm calling it playbook. They have their own more specific details of how students would be received and the different strategies they'd be used. But in the absence of a quote structure to return, it seems as if we don't have a plan, and we do have a plan. We're just waiting for that guidance to say, here it is, here's the plan. We would even communicate with that plan. Here's a link so people can follow with the state to see how we're progressing. I will say the state's metrics is about a week behind the counties, and the county numbers are even lower. So it's still trending towards the red. I would love to make a prediction, but my predictions lately have been way off. So I will refuse to make a prediction, but it does seem like it's definitely trending in that manner. And so we could see it sooner than later.
Superintendent Blair, I have a couple questions based off the public comments.
Yes.
First of all, regarding reopening the Center High School and Wilson C. Riles, which some people asked for, we have no legal way to do that until we're in the red, correct?
Correct. In the purple tier, there is not a path that has been put out. Now, I do want to qualify or quantify everything we say right now is the governor and the legislature are working on new guidance as well. So all of this that we're laying out could change. The big hot topic seems to be vaccination. Do teachers need to be vaccinated or not? Or educational staff, not just teachers. So I just want to clarify that it may not be just, things could change tomorrow. Sorry, I just have to give that disclaimer.
Okay, yeah, and everything here is based off what the rules are today because we don't know what the future holds.
Correct.
So somebody mentioned Natomas is reopening. Do you know how they're managing to do that with the testing requirement?
I do not. I do know that I don't know. I know that I saw a news article on it that they were going to open the 23rd. And then later I had heard it might be a little later. I don't have the specific details.
Okay.
I could certainly explore with them to see what they're doing if that's the will of the board.
I would like to find out some more information on that. I'll try to do some research on my end, but I am curious about that. I thought that was a good point. And one of the parents was questioning if the testing is actually a requirement or if there are other ways to do that. Can we get clarification on that?
Yeah, so we had not had clarification, and that actually Ms. Mason and myself were in a meeting, and it was stated by our public health director that to sign off on a K6 waiver, they would want that testing cadence that's outlined in the CDPH guidance currently.
And if we did that and had that testing cadence, once we got back to the red tier, would we be able to discontinue the testing?
The cadence would switch. The cadence requirement would switch. I know in the purple tier, the standard was that they would want to follow the cadence. The assumption would be we could get a little less. We've already got some surveillance testing for staff. We also are working on some rapid testing that we could do for response testing on site. And again, it's all voluntary as well.
Okay, and then to address a couple of other things that were brought up. Somebody asked about clubs and teams and if there's any way to bring those back on campus.
So CIF has allowed for certain seasons of sports. We have had some conditioning because they've allowed it. And I appreciate what the staff, they've followed some pretty rigorous rules, I guess, or procedures to have those students come back. Seasons are starting to open. I believe cross country and golf are the two that we, if I can remember correctly, are allowed to open now. Since the rules for CIF have changed, we've had to our league had to get disbanded. So we're actually with our teams looking to do that. The high school, Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Jubelli, I know are trying to get word out to the kids that could participate. I know today I was stretching my legs and they were out, there were some kids out on the track or the field there.
Okay, and then as far as the question, are we concerned about students falling behind? I can speak only truly for myself, but from what I've seen from everyone on this call, the answer is a clear yes. As far as whether or not a protest would help, I just want to say we're already hearing you. You have a right, if you wanted to organize a protest, to be heard, but I'm telling you that we're already hearing what you have to say, and we are working to get this district reopened as soon as possible, as safely as possible, and as efficiently as possible. It's just trying to figure out how best to do that. So, I don't think a protest would help speed that along, but, again, that is a right that people have, but I want to let people know you are being heard. I've been listening to every comment that has come our way. I'm taking it to heart. and we are trying to do the best we can for the students in the community.
Steve, that reminds me of the summer program. Mr. Lair, could you mention that?
Yeah, I know learning loss. We've already started some stuff with the high school right now at Center High School for intercession to try and help students. But this summer, we're already looking at offering a much more robust summer type program, distance and in person if allowable. We're hoping that we can offer that at every school site for those that want to participate. Going forward, we would also look at extending days. I know there's other options of intercession type things, and that's a lot of what the dollars will be used for to help offset that, because we have our agreements with our labor groups allows for a certain amount of work days. To bring those individuals back to perform work, we have to compensate them. They won't work for free. So a lot of the dollars would be used to accommodate that learning loss over a pretty long time period. And more information, our struggle right now with the summer program is we're hopeful that we'll be able to do some of it in person and not have to do it all remotely for those that want to come in. And some of it may not be just academic, but also just how to get along again. So we have some little guys who've never been in seats before. And so how do we interact, on that level too? So that is definitely in the works, and more info will be coming on that.
I'm sorry for the interruption, Steve.
No problem.
That was important.
Thank you. That's actually something I didn't jot down in my notes, but I had meant to ask about. And the other thing is, you said that the requirements changed to we could reopen 5 days into the red. What would it take if we wanted to switch from 2 weeks in to 5 days in?
We would need to reopen our labor agreements and then go back to the table with our bargaining groups to see if we could change it for those 5 days.
And how much time would that process typically take?
I would hate to guess. It could be an hour. It could be a month. I would hate to speculate on that. I don't have an answer, because if I said it's an hour, it's going to take a month. If I said it's a month, it'll take an hour.
Well, feasibly, an hour is not possible. I mean,
I know. No, I know. I'm giving.
I mean, you could negotiate tomorrow, and it could take an hour, and you do an MOU, but then it still has to go to board for approval. Still has to go to membership for approval. So, I mean, realistically speaking, 2 weeks would be probably the minimum that it could feasibly be done. And that is everybody, agreeing on 100% of the points. So,
but we know they want to wait for testing anyway, or for not testing, but for
vaccines.
injections. Yeah, vaccines.
So, another question I have: we currently meet once a month as a board, typically, and with changing requirements and everything, that kind of leaves a point where if things change, there could be a long delay before we can react to it. What could we do is, if the rules change, to meet earlier?
With the majority of the board, we can schedule a meeting and notice it. And I believe in 72 hours, we could schedule a meeting.
Okay.
And it just needs to be properly posted. So if you guys give us direction, something changes, we could call a meeting. The mainly thing would be your availability to have a quorum. And then, so I need 3 of you.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we could give guidance tonight that would preempt us needing to meet again.
Correct.
So, I mean, yes, if there were major changes, once that guidance finally comes out of the legislature, if there's major changes that we need to meet about, then like Mr. Lear said, we could schedule a meeting, but hopefully we'll be able to leave here this evening with providing some, concrete guidance that won't require us to meet again if and when we reach the red tier. So that's what I'm hoping for. And Mr. Bruno, you beat me to the punch. I really just wanted to say to all the parents out there that we hear you. We don't just hear you, we are with you. We are 100% with you with wanting to get the kids back in school. Obviously, we want to do it as safely as possible, and in order to do that, we have to follow the guidelines. You know, there could be an argument that we should have reopened in the fall, even though Thanksgiving break was looming ahead. But at this point, it's pointless to say what we should have, could have, would have done, because we didn't. And we had good reasons for not doing it. And now we are prevented from doing so. So I just wish I could give you the answer you want to hear. I really do. I feel for everybody out there with kids that are home and depressed and people that can't go to work. And I just feel badly for all of you. And we are working as hard as we can to make this happen as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to say, we hear you. We hear you.
Trustee Kelly, this is Carol.
Yes.
I have a few more comments that came in right after I finished. Would I be
Okay.
able to read those?
I see no problem. We have not made any motion or action on the item, so it's still open for discussion.
Okay. This is from Marissa Casado. It is my opinion that the state, county, and school districts are failing our children by not opening the classrooms to at least the elementary school students. I have a kindergarten, 5th grader, and sophomore, and my husband and I both work full-time outside of the home. My husband, who is our primary wage earner, took a huge pay cut in March, so we cannot afford to pay for childcare, but make too much for assistance to help pay for it. My kindergartner, who also has an IEP, is expected to know how to tell time to log into meetings and read instructions and stay on task, with the help of his siblings who have their own classes and education to focus on. COVID is not going away anytime soon, and we need to start finding ways to adapt because we are losing precious time to educate these kids. From Lindsay Turner. Dear board members, the health and safety of the children in our community should be #1 priority. We have all been experiencing a new way of life with the COVID-19. We have been quarantined to our homes, had to wear masks outside, physically distance ourselves from loved ones and friends, and some of us have not been able to work or go to school. Now that some parts of our lives are making their way back to a new normal, we would like for schools to reopen. If other schools 5 minutes down the road can open, why can't CUSD? If my 4-year-old son can attend in-person preschool at a CUSD school currently and follows the rules set in place by his teacher without catching COVID, I do not see why there should be any issues for the rest of the grades. With our children's overall health and wellness being the priority here, what about the kids who are suffering from depression? What of those who are abused? Usually the teachers are the ones to question what's going on at home. What of those that are starved? Whose parents are too proud to bring their child for the free lunch or food locker? What of those that are alone, unsupervised because their parent can't afford daycare but must work outside of the home? Where is the voice for these children? Keeping the school closed is doing more harm than good. If you ask my opinion, the teachers that do not feel safe to return to in-person learning should be given the option of returning to class or hitting that unemployment line so that those that are willing to return can do so. I'm sure there is a lot of teachers that are looking for a full-time position. As for the parents who don't want their children back, there is homeschool for a reason. My daughter, who is normally an A's and B student last semester, had D's and F's. That is unacceptable. Then in class the other day, I hear the teacher telling the students, what you get for a grade now affects what classes you get in high school, knowing darn well that most of the students are failing, including those that normally wouldn't. So those that were not given the opportunity to excel because distance learning is a horrible long-term solution now have to be punished? As a district, you can do better. I am at a point where I will unenroll my children, give my money and tax dollars to another district if that continues. From Latoya Jenkins. Cases is dropping, let's bring TK through 6 back. Can we offer more support and sports conditioning programs for 7 through 12, just so the kids can be more active? Also, can we offer more mental health counseling resources for the kids? From Chandra, communication has 100% been the #1 problem. Increased communication would be much appreciated. From Elise Hale, as a high student, I would like to thank you guys for putting our safety and the safety of our families first. Most of us are in agreement that we are willing to shoulder the burden of being away from school as long as we, our families, our classmates, and our teachers are safe. Once it is safe, we look forward to seeing everyone again and are eagerly waiting for the community to contribute with our efforts to be safe. Again, thank you all. From Latoya Jenkins, can we bring a conditioning programs to the elementary schools? My nonprofit organization can run the programs. And the last one I have says from Chandra, students who are struggling now are not going to want to spend their summer on a computer, especially after a year of doing this. And that's all I have.
So I would propose, Mr. Lair, to advise, this is my opinion, to advise staff to continue with the 2 weeks once we get into the red tier. We could reopen schools.
So for
Is
my
that a motion?
Sorry,
Mrs.
I'm sorry.
Pope? That's okay. Is that a motion, Mrs. Pope?
Yes, that would be a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Lear, you had some comments?
No, I just wanted to clarify what I heard her Miss Pope say. So the idea was we would start 2 weeks into the red would be the date we would move to plan 2 in our hybrid model. Okay, I just want to make sure. I see some nodding, so I think
Yeah.
you're on the same page. Good, thank you.
Yeah, I think that we'll be in the red tier soon. Let's all hope that we are going to be in the red tier soon. We already have the bargaining agreement in place. I think reopening the bargaining agreement could end up causing further delays, and would only save us 6 days. So, well, not 6 days, it would be what, 9 days. So, I mean, 9 days is a lot, I know, but I think that since we already have it in place, we should just thank goodness that we have the bargaining agreements already set. We've got all of our plans. We're waiting for approval on our plans, our CSP. We're looking forward to the new guidance from the legislature. There's just, everything is lined up to go. We just have to reach that red tier and we will be ready to pull the trigger. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
No, this includes high school kids, right?
Yes, it would be all the schools, correct?
Yeah.
It would be TK 12, 2 weeks into the red, we would bring them back.
Sounds awesome.
Carol, could you read the motion again, please?
I don't have that exact wording. I was going to get it off the recording later.
Okay, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot like that. Delray, could you just repeat it? I'm sorry.
Yes, President Kelly, I would motion once the state or Sac County is in the red tier to open schools 2 weeks after.
Great. And we have a second.
Plan 2.
In plan
Right.
2, I just want to clarify, it's the hybrid, we return in the hybrid model, which is plan
Hybrid too.
Yeah, and that option would give parents the option to keep their kids in remote learning if they choose, or return them to in-person class. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
thank you. Any further discussion? And we'll have a roll call vote. Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you again to everybody who's commented on this. And Mr. Jordan, hi, what can I help you with, sir?
My apologies. On a related issue, it came up a few times about some of our students are struggling mental health wise. We do recognize that. I just want to remind anyone who's out there, if that is an issue with your student, please contact your site administrator and/or counselors. We do have some resources available. As a cabinet, we recognize it's an issue too. And part of that, we've been talking about the COVID money, what's going to be used for. We approved this morning to bring on another full-time mental health counselor for the next year to help out with those exact needs. So families, please reach out to your site admin. We do have some resources available on site and through our Family Resource Center. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Jordan. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, moving along to business item number C, which is the district calendar for the school year 2023 to 24. This calendar for the 2023-24 was created consistent with prior years, including preserving the following priorities: maintaining a 10-month work year for 10-month employees, maintaining the district's October break, which everybody loves apparently, providing a relatively even split between the first and second semesters, while also providing for first semester finals before winter break. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion, Miss Kelly.
To approve the calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. And a second?
I'm motioning to bring it to the floor, ma'am.
Oh, motion to bring it to the floor.
Yes,
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have discussion?
Yes, please. It's my discussion. I would like to state or ask, is it possible once October break comes around, if we could follow the learning loss and have some kind of like an intervention program for the students that wish to attend?
So with that, I know you know this calendar probably brings the October break to your mind. This is 23-24, but
Yes.
all of our calendars do have the October break. One of the things we would work on and work toward would be not only maximizing summer, but also maximizing after school, before school programs. And I think your recommendation here, October, that would be something else to look at too, that we could try to bring some kids back that would want to come back to get some extra support. I know other districts have even done it over the winter break where they've brought staff in. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And the funding for that would come from the COVID funding that we're waiting, the ESSR 2.
Right.
Correct?
So there's multiple pots. There's the SSR 1, the ESSR 2, and then there's some governor's initiatives in addition to those. But those two, the latest one is the ESSER 2 we're waiting on. It's coming, we think, sometime after March that we might actually see the money. And that was what was approved back in December by the federal government.
Wonderful. Any further discussion on this item? So the chair would entertain a motion to approve if somebody would like to.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Mrs. Trustee Anderson and seconded by Trustee Pope. And roll call vote for approval of the district calendar for the school year 2023-24. Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving on to item number 16, advanced planning. Future meeting dates, the regular meeting Wednesday, March 17th, 2021 at 6 p.m. At Riles Middle School, or to be held by Zoom if necessary. And do we have any suggested agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to continuation of closed session. The board does not need to continue meeting in closed session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I motion.
So moved by Trustee Bruno and seconded by Mrs. Trustee Anderson, and the meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, you guys. And thank you to Eugene for getting